New podcast in the description. Talked about the Brooklyn Nets and their future, and then talked about Darkest Hour with Gary Oldman, and if I liked or disliked that one. But now we will talk about the Boston Celtics, who used their disabled player exception, not in a trade, but in a free agent signing, as they signed Greg Monroe to a one-year deal, bought out by the Phoenix Suns. I think Greg Monroe can help the Celtics actually quite a bit. The first thing I think of with Monroe is his abilities on offense. He is a very good roller to the basket. He can grab the occasional offensive rebound. He's a good finisher around the basket in general, so dump-off passes and that sort of stuff. He can post up, which is something I wouldn't do too many times in a game, but if he ends up on a mismatch or if there's like 7 or 8 seconds left in the shot clock and the initial motion died down, then he could get you a bucket or draw a foul. And he also is a pretty solid passer, and I think that can allow Monroe to make plays out of the low post. So if Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum or maybe Kyrie Irving are cutting to the basket while Monroe's posting up, he could get him the ball that way. I think he can also be a good passer out of the pick and roll. So he and Kyrie have a play, and then the help defender leaves, Jaylen Brown in the corner to contest, and then Monroe can kick it out to him. So he's a good offensive player. Does he have some faults on defense? Yeah, I think he's not bad at defending the low posts just because he's a big body. I think he's not bad at just being a general rim protector, because even if Monroe might not be the quickest on his feet, at least if he's in the general direction or area of the rim, like he's nearly 7 feet tall, and he's not like the slowest big man in the world, I think that can be okay for you. Now, does that mean he's going to have trouble defending outside of the paint? Yeah, and I think that could catch up to you sometimes. Opposing teams put him in pick and rolls and all that. But I think as long as you don't play him too many minutes, as he's been about a 22 to 23 minute a game guy for this season and as well as last year, then I think it won't kill you. Now, it also helps that the Celtics are the best defensive team in the NBA. So I'm sure that they'll find ways of just having Monroe not be exposed defensively as much. I'm sure Horford will have moments maybe where like Monroe's guy will go up for a screen, and then Horford will quickly switch to that guy to defend the pick and roll because, of course, Horford's one of the best pick and roll defenders in the NBA. Little things like that, other things that I can't think of because I'm not as smart as Brad Stevens is, can hopefully allow Monroe to just not get killed defensively. And I mentioned Al Horford a second ago, so we might as well see how Horford and Monroe can play together. The first thing that this does is it allows Horford to not have to worry about rebounds as much. And I think that was the main reason why they signed Aaron Baines this offseason. So you have one guy do more of the grunt work as a center, and then you allow Horford to do more perimeter-oriented things, which is what he's really good at, of course. So Monroe should be good there. He can worry about rebounds. He can help out Horford in that sense. And then when they play together on offense, I would assume Horford's your power forward, Monroe is your center. And it'll be interesting to see because Horford's the floor spacer, Monroe will be closer to the basket. But I do think Stevens will use Horford's passing, or Monroe's passing ability for like handoff plays and pick and rolls like I mentioned earlier. So you could have a lot of floor spacing around Monroe, actually. Because you could have Horford spotting up in one area and you could have Monroe. You could even do a high-low sort of thing where you have Horford out around the perimeter and then you have Monroe down around the basket to post up on guys. A lot of interesting things that I think they could do, and I expect Brad Stevens to do them. And if we talk about the rotation, I think Daniel Tice is probably not in the rotation now. He plays about 14 minutes a game. I assume you just give those 14 minutes to Greg Monroe. Unless Monroe's defense is an absolute disaster, because Tice, if anything, is like not bad at stepping out on and defending guys. But I assume Monroe will still be able to give you more. So those 14 minutes go to him. I think you can knock Aaron Baines' minutes down a little bit to give Monroe an extra like 3 to 5 minutes a game. So now we're up to potentially 18 to 20 minutes a game. Then I think you could see the odd minute here or there that used to be Horford's that now goes to Monroe, or maybe Marcus Morris in the Horford lineups when they'll both be in the front court. Maybe a couple more of those minutes will be dedicated to Monroe and Horford. I'm sure Monroe will play with Morris at times. So I think Monroe is going to be able to creep up to around 23 minutes a game for the Celtics, which is about as much as I would give him. I also think this makes Monroe probably their best offensive player off the bench. They've been asking Marcus Morris to kind of take on that role, and he has his moments where he gets his Carmelo Anthony on with his isolations that become long two-pointers, which isn't really the most efficient brand of basketball. I think what Monroe can do for you with more stuff around the basket, and probably not as many just like post-ups that take up the entire shot clock, that'll probably be better for them than what Marcus Morris does. And I could see a Celtics team that right now their offensive rating is 17th in the NBA. Could it creep up just a little bit more with Monroe out there? Yeah, I think it definitely could. And I think the defense is not going to be killed because of Monroe being out there either. And I actually want to get back to Monroe and Horford a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if Monroe ends up starting eventually, because Stevens has been using a kind of game-by-game basis on the big man or the starting player next to Horford. So Marcus Morris has started 13 games, Aaron Baines has started 39, but Morris has also only played in 30 games. So you assume if he has never gotten hurt, then those starts between those two could be even closer. I assume that's going to maintain itself. I think at times when Brad thinks he can just start the game smaller against a team, we'll see Horford and Morris, and then sometimes we'll see Horford and Monroe, I guess. But the other thing I want to talk about is, could this potentially give the Celtics an offensive big outside of Horford? Because when Horford is not in the game, their offense does struggle sometimes. Even when Kyrie is in there, they can still have moments where they lose out on Horford's ability to screen, his ball handling, his dribbling, and his floor spacing and all that. I mean, when Horford's not in the game, the Celtics' offensive rating is like 99, and when he is in the game, it's 108. Now, part of that is because he plays with Kyrie Irving a lot. But still, like if you just watch the games for the Celtics, you will see the impact that Horford has for them on offense. Is Monroe going to be able to give you all of that? No, he's not going to give you Horford's floor spacing, his ball handling, or his passing. But Monroe's still not a bad passer himself. He will grab a few more offensive rebounds, and he's a very good roller. So could we see lineups with Monroe and Kyrie when Monroe doesn't start next to Horford, if he ends up starting ever, and the offense doesn't see a noticeable decrease? It's possible. Sure, Monroe's not as talented as Horford, but if he's got Kyrie and pick and rolls with him, then you might still be okay. Because the defense is going to have to respect Kyrie. Monroe's a damn good finisher around the basket. He also draws contact for fouls and all that, so it's possible. And then we'll say that you use that lineup for the last few minutes of the first quarter, and to open up the second quarter, maybe you have, Marcus Smart and Al Horford, or Terry Rozier and Al Horford, whoever it may be. Just gives you more opportunity to stagger Kyrie and Horford, because when those two are not in the game, it's been like a disaster for this team. So I like the move, man. I like the signing of Monroe. I think he's going to help them on offense, and he's not going to hurt them that much on defense. And as a result, it should be a net positive, right? So that's going to do it. once again, new podcast in the description. Brooklyn Nets future, darkest hour, and I'm done.